give you a taste of adhesion. And the thing is that this is the way dentistry is going. And adhesive dentistry is going to be what you're practicing. So you may wonder, this one. Just heard my loud voice. There. Okay, you may wonder what a biomedic dentist is. And actually, a biomedic dentist is one that practices adhesive dentistry. So, the past 10 years, I've limited my practice to just adhesive dentistry. And we can take teeth that are badly broken down and rebuild them based on the natural biomechanics and health of the tooth. And our goal is to preserve tooth structure. And part of our training is really keeping up with the latest research. Several years ago, they discovered superdentin. And you may say, well, what is superdentin? Is that what Superman has in his mouth? I always wondered, did he get a cat? Anyway, superdentin, which the official name is the acid-base resistance zone, is a thin layer that is found underneath a hybrid layer. Now, is this important? Yeah, it's very, very important because part of our training is to preserve teeth, and part of that is to prevent secondary decay. So you have to think of the tooth. You can't think of the tooth as just a solid mass of enamel and dentin, because the enamel is inorganic, but the dentin is actually living tissue. As was mentioned last week, the dentin is composed of tubules, and within those tubules are odontoblastic processes that can either cause you a lot of problems or be your friend. You can produce more dentin if the pulp comes under attack. So the theory is if we take care of the pulp, if we let this tooth always stay a happy tooth, the tooth will take care of itself. And please do not think we don't believe in root canals or anything like that. No, we believe if you need a root canal, you get a root canal. And we do implants. But when we have a natural tooth and we feel that the prognosis of that natural tooth will keep it as a part of a healthy dentition, then to us that is the best implant that you can place. So if you look at a tooth and that blue line is the enamel, and that really thin line is the dentin enamel junction. And that is where the enamel and the dentin interface. Now what's surprising is they really don't know why these two very dissimilar materials stick together. Okay, there's little enamel tufts, there's little pieces of dentin going into the enamel, but really and truly, they haven't really agreed on why the enamel is part of the dentin. So if you take enamel with no dentin, it is really brittle, has no strength as far as flexibility. Modulus of elasticity is nil. You bend it, it cracks. Dentin is forgiving. It's stronger than bone, but it's kind of the same family, the same hardness. But dentin can come under attack by acids, and that is where decay starts. So if you have a cavity, it's not so much the bacteria, it's the acids that they produce. And we have intrinsic and extrinsic. You have bacteria producing acids, and you have soda pop, or lemons, or anything that will produce acid. And that's probably a bigger problem than the microorganisms. So if you look here, the red circle in the middle, that's deep dentin. That's the dentin that is adjacent to the dental pulp. If we go through that dentin, we're going to have a pulp exposure. So what we want to do is stay away from there. So our goal is to prevent secondary caries. One thing I forgot to mention over there, if you have intact dentin, this is healthy dentin, it's really hard. So if you take a probe and stick it, it's not going to go in. And it really tells you that there's no bacteria. So hard dentin means no bacteria. If you have discolored dentin, that is not an indicator of anything. Dentin can be stained, but it can be healthy. So if we're looking at decay, the fact that a probe will enter the dentin is an indication of bacteria infiltration. The outer caries, we have actually two layers of caries. The outer caries, which is very soft, is filled with bacteria. It is totally demineralized. You can take a spoon and take it out. In fact, in Japan, and you say, well, why is he always quoting Japan? Well, a lot of our members are from Japan. They have a lot of friends there, and they're really far ahead in caries research. But how they judge where they're at is they don't give the anesthetic yet. They take out the outer caries. When the patient starts feeling it, they know they're in the inner layer of caries, which is called affected caries. The outer layer is infected caries. They will then give the anesthetic and proceed to treat the tooth. So our big problem, everything we talk about is gauged to prevent recurrent decay. You have a patient, deep decay underneath the crown. Okay? Is this treatable? Does this patient need a new crown? First of all, you have no access to this tooth while the crown's in place. So the crown has to be removed. So if we had some means of preventing secondary decay, our patients would be better off. So if we could place a material that is hermetically sealing off the tooth so the bacteria can't get in and destroy the dentin, that patient can lead a full healthy life without having another problem with this tooth. On average, a composite resin will last 5 years. That's the insurance numbers. However, what if you could have a composite resin last 25 years? And by following certain principles, you can. So this tooth was restored with a ceramic crown, and if you look up there, you see this dense white material. That is just composite. That's reinforced composite. We raise the margin, and we utilize techniques to seal off the dentin. So if there is any leakage, it's going to be between composite and the ceramic of the crown. Worst case scenario is if the crown comes off, you still have the tooth. So our primary goal is to keep the tooth healthy. A crown can always be replaced. If the tooth comes out, then you're faced with doing an implant, bridge work, or something other than treating the tooth. The hybrid layer, as Dr. Alberto mentioned, is the whole basis of everything we're doing. As you will see, you have a smear layer. The smear is what you find is the debris. It's collagen, it's minerals, it's the slurry left after you're grinding the tooth. If you ever used sandpaper and went down the sandpaper, you have this wood and oil or whatever, it sticks to the wood. Same thing here, it's debris. You have to take off the smear to get to the dentin, and that's why you etch the enamel. The second, you have to demineralize the enamel. So you're applying a type of acid, whether it's phosphoric acid or it is an acid monomer. And thirdly, you want to penetrate with the adhesive monomers, the resin. That resin, that hybrid layer is composed of tooth, living tissue, and the inorganic resin. And it combines to create this attachment of composite to the tooth. So here on your left, is dentin that's covered with smear. Looks like cream cheese. Okay? On the left and the right is the tooth cleaned off by application of an acid. Those holes are the dentin tubules. Okay? It's like looking on the end of thousands and millions of straws. Those open tubules are important. If we look at another schematic here, on the left you'll see the tubules clogged with the smear. If you bond to this material right now, your bond will fail. It's not going to last. And you can see the photomicrograph underneath that. You etch the dentin, you expose the collagen fibers, and you open the tubule. It's very important that the collagen fibers not be desiccated. As was mentioned last week, if you over-dry them, they will collapse. Your bond will fail. You have to keep them moist. Thirdly, you see the dentin adhesive, and you see the adhesive going into the dental tubules, plugging it up. This is macro retention. So we don't need some of the principles you're following for placing a restoration, because we're using adhesion for everything we're doing. Again, you see the smear plug, which is just debris. You want to get that out of there. It's very important that the adhesive flows into the tubule in order to have the maximum retention of the composite. So you say, well, how strong is this? How strong is this attachment? So if we had a block of dentin here, and we pulled on that block of dentin, we need 50 megapascals to separate that block of dentin. At the DEJ, it's 51.5 megapascals. That's how much tensile strength in your natural tooth. Okay. If you follow protocols for bonding, for example, you have to use a rubber dam. Yes. If you have blood, if you have water, if you have saliva, you will affect your bond strength. You can achieve bonds exceeding 60 megapascals. So I always tell the story of my wife. I did veneers on my wife. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. But my wife likes to use her teeth, open packages and plastic things. I said, whatever you do, don't open your packages with your teeth. Use the scissors. Well, one day she calls me up. My veneer came off. What were you doing? So I was biting my nails. Okay. If you see a patient biting your nails, don't do the veneers. So she comes in, and what was fantastic, and I didn't take a picture. The veneer was in her hand, and in the veneer was dentin. The dentin split, not the veneer. Tooth broke. The veneer was intact. So we slapped the veneer back on. It was about 5 years ago. It hasn't come off because you stopped using your teeth. That's how strong the bond strength can be. Tooth breaks, and that's what they have found in study after study. If you follow the protocols, tooth will break, veneer will. Again, just another picture. This is the basis of everything we're doing. Okay, what you're seeing down here, we've taken out the dentin, all those little extensions that look like stalactites. They hang down. Okay, the tubules have all been removed. That's resin. That's what holds this thing together. Okay? That's what holds it together. All right, super dentin. I mean, this sounds like, I don't know why they call this super dentin. It's the acid-base resistance zone, but my colleagues in Japan like to have quirky names for different things. So they found that the physical properties of the materials that you're using and how good is your hybrid zone, which directly reflects what type of dentin body agent you're using, and whether or not the fluoride creates this preventive barrier to secondary decay. And they located this adjacent and beneath the hybrid layer. Okay, it's thinner than the hybrid layer. So when you start etching and using adhesion, it's critical to use the right products in order to develop this super dentin layer. This acts to prevent the barrier coming in, or the barrier to the microorganisms. So basically what we have here, the little red circles are bacteria. We have the coating is the hybrid layer, and beneath the hybrid layer is the secondary barrier, the super dentin. If we don't have that, you have caries progression by the bacteria. Second thing we know is that if you seal the bacteria under composite or underneath the adhesive, they die or become dormant because you're blocking off the source of nutrient. So there is a technique where we can actually take incipient caries and enclose them in resin. And theoretically, they don't get bigger. Some of that is still out for research right now. But if you take decay and block it off, it will stay that way. And what does the pulp do? Produces secondary and tertiary dentin. So it walls itself off. Oh, just another schematic showing what they look for. So, what else do we know? That there are enzymes within the pulp, which are found throughout the body, called matrix metalloproteinases. And there's one that degrades the resin bond. So at one time when we were using certain etch and rinse products, we actually had to use an antimicrobial chlorhexidine. Not this stuff is prevalent, but this is a stronger solution to knock out the bacteria, to eliminate the matrix proteinases, which you'll see written as MMPs. But today, most of the products contain an anti-MMP additive. Probably the gold standard is Clearfill SC Protect. That is like number one. All right, again, it's from Japan, but it is sold by Ferrari. All right, so with dental caries, what's the problem? Acid. Okay, demineralizes the dentin. But the acid also does something else. It activates the MMPs. So it can be a vicious circle. Okay? So we have to control the bacteria, and we have to control the acid. And whenever we talk about, you have to evaluate the patient and eliminate the causative agents. So if you have a patient that drinks Mountain Dew and has 3 cans a day, I can assure you they're going to have decay. So you can do whatever you want as far as restoring those teeth, but if the habit doesn't stop, everything you do will fail. So you've got to eliminate or change the patient's diet, right? Because you don't want your work to fail, and you're trying to restore his mouth to health. All right, we found this super dentin, and then they found that it was resistant to acid, right? So they found it was also dependent on the system used, which we'll show in a second. So we used the etch and rinse system. Etch and rinse system means you took 37% phosphoric acid, you applied it to the dentin, and you applied it to the enamel, and you rinsed it off. And this was, at one time, the gold standard. And what we found was the ABRZ did not form. They found that when you didn't use phosphoric acid, it would form. And we call that a two-bottle system. So when we use an acid monomer rather than a very strong etchant, we developed this. When we used our standard techniques, it did not develop. And we also found that when they used fluoride in the system, you had a thicker super dentin layer. These things all are diagrammed right here, somewhere. Okay, one slide. But a super dentin is basically a reinforced and modified dentin. It's still dentin, okay? And it resists the activity of bacteria. It's a combination of dentin and the hybrid layer. Okay? This is all a chemical reaction. We're not talking about any type of macro retention. So, when we use a self-etching primer, basically what this means, you have two bottles. One bottle has the dentin bonding agent primer, and a primer is an additive which helps draw the resin into the system. And it contains this acidic monomer. And they also found that one specific monomer works best. It's called 10-MDP, and you can say it, I don't want to. There's no test on it. So we get rid of this smear layer, and we demineralize some of the hydroxyapatite, but not all. And they feel that's the key to developing the super dentin. So, if you leave some of the hydroxyapatite, we have this residual mineral that reinforces the resin dentin system and creates this impediment to the action of the bacteria, which can eliminate secondary caries. And where do secondary caries start? They start in the box, okay, in the floor of a class 2. That's where they start. You don't see secondary caries starting on an incisal angle. You see it on a class 2 in the floor of the box. So, needless to say, a lot of us changed our techniques. We went from an etch and rinse system into a two-bottle system. So, the classic etch and rinse system, you can have a three-step system, which you put the acid on, you wash it off, you apply the primer, you air dry it, you apply the resin, which is then cured. You also have a two-bottle system. And here's where it gets confusing. The two-bottle system, you etch, you wash, and the second bottle has your primer and adhesive. And this is the one you don't want to use, because you will not create the super dentin with that. So if we look at our two-bottle systems, there's also a one-bottle system. And we don't use it, because the hybrid layer is way too thick. So in a two-bottle system, you have the one we just talked about, or the one we want to use, which in bottle 1, you have the acid monomer, and you have your primer. You apply that. You air dry it. You apply your resin. You cure it. Okay? Clearfill SE Protect contains fluoride. Contains 10 MDP. So those two ingredients are crucial to develop this very strong and very thick super dentin. So we don't want to apply phosphoric acid. However, is this what we want to use on an animal? And the answer is, are we sounding no? We don't. Because the acid monomer doesn't do to an animal what it can do to dentin. So we use the selective etching technique. So you have deep cavity. Okay, so we use the two-bottle system on all the dentin. And then we put a layer of composite down, a 0.5 millimeter layer of composite. Then we can put whatever we want on that tooth without harming the dentin. So then we apply the 37% phosphoric acid to etch the enamel. Then we can dry that, apply adhesive, and then start restoring the tooth. So it can get kind of technical. And it may not mean that much now, but we have the ways of achieving a very, very beautiful and healthy restoration for the tooth. So we can improve our techniques, and but you have to follow guidelines. So these primers that we're applying all contain a solvent. That solvent can be acetone, it can be water, it can be alcohol. You have to dissipate that with air without totally desiccating the dentin. Because all these things, if they fail, you're going to lose your bond strength. So let's just take a couple teeth. You have teeth here. This looks shiny. Okay, these are just standard restorations. And we use our two-step system here. We want to develop the super dentin. We then cover these with a thin layer of composite. We use a flowable composite. And we apply it in a 0.5 millimeter layer. And why do we do that? We call this the biobase. This is our most tenacious bond. All right? We then bond our composite to this biobase, layer by layer. And then we have a nice restoration. Thing is, if we ever see, that was my attempt, that little brown spot was my attempt at staining. I have a friend in Italy, his teeth looked like they were erupted from the gum tissue, but I've never been able to match him at all. But anyway, if this patient comes back and we have a little stain, let's say, at a broken margin, we can just take an air abrasion unit, which fires a very, very fine stream of sand, abrasive, clean it out and reseal. We don't have to take the whole thing out. Why? Because I know what's in there. Okay? I know that these you do have problems, nothing's 100%, but we can treat them on a different level. More extreme problems, what happens when you have a root canal? So Carol comes in, she's got a toothache, she had an amalgam in this tooth, and she had a necrotic pulp, and lo and behold, we see cracks running in her tooth. The endodontist does the endo, and the question is what do we want to do now? Can we reinforce this tooth? What is the way to prevent this tooth from totally failing? All right, what you're looking at on the right, again, we know we have the bond strength here. That's called Ribond. Ribond is a polyethylene fiber. It goes inside the tooth. It is Kevlar. It's the same stuff in my bicycle tires. It's the same stuff they use in bulletproof vests. We bond that to the dentin. What does that do? It cross braces the dentin where it's the weakest, across the cracks. We also know that if we put a crown on a tooth like this without addressing the crack will propagate. It will grow. Crowns do not stop cracks. You have to stop the crack directly. We know that this crack went into the pulp because the endodontist could see it. But we can go ahead and restore this tooth with a composite using the techniques because we know how strong a bond we can develop. That's the beauty of using adhesive dentistry. We know we can return a tooth to strength by adding some things to the ingredients, namely adding a fiber. And you say, well, how did they develop this? Well, to be honest, the guy who invented it is now the president of San Diego, University of Texas at San Diego. It comes from the airplane industry. When they would make airline fuselages out of polymers, they strengthened the polymers by using Kevlar. And there is a whole field of engineering that has to deal with fiber mechanics. I understand zero of it, I don't know. Okay, he would sit there and flash up these equations. You know, thank God I had solitaire on my phone. But we know this, it works. For whatever reason, it works. We know if we bond that in there, this tooth's not going anywhere. We know that we will recapture the strength of that tooth. How do we know that? Because people do research on it. We know that we can return a broken down tooth to its pre-treatment strength by utilizing techniques to increase the bond strength of these teeth. And, you know, this patient, we saved the tooth. She's walking around about 5 years now. And, you know, we didn't have to put a crown on it. Well, why is that so bad? Well, it wouldn't do the job in this case. Second of all, I didn't have to touch the gum line. I didn't have to take off the enamel. Right? The only thing we removed was an old amalgam. So the science is there. Here's the parte. Here's what's coming in a few months. Here's the parte. Just read. If you have any questions, see me.
The goal for today is that we go downstairs. We're gonna have some natural extracted teeth, and we're going to be cutting these teeth in half. Okay. So I want you guys to team up like in groups of 5 or no more than 5. Okay. Take every single tooth that you have it, regardless if you have cavities there or previous restoration or the tooth is intact. Because even if it's intact, you still can see some stuff underneath, or at least you can see the interfaces that Dr. Resniak was mentioning here. So, and I don't want to see like, you know, in a group of 5, like 4 people just looking at one person doing the whole work. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. And it's like, well, this guy, he's brilliant. He's doing the whole thing. I'm going to take up, you know, because I have an exemption where don't do that. All right? So one person can start cutting, the other one can start taking your pictures, use your smartphone, your tablet, whatever you have it. You guys have absolutely amazing cameras. And what I want from you is that perhaps within 2 weeks, if you need more time to prepare, not necessarily by next week, but within 2 weeks, I want a report from the group saying what exactly you found, and that's our part, was the faculty members are going to be walking around and looking at this teeth with you and showing like this is enamel, this is denting, this is the interface, this is decay, this is frequent decay, this is a filling, this is no staining underneath the amalgam, things like that. All right. And once you guys take these pictures, you can put together in a word processing document or a PowerPoint, whatever. And this is just an example that I got last year. And it was one of the best reports I got because it has almost everything. Not the quality on the report. I think they could put more data there, but the images are absolutely amazing, right? So what I want is the names, because this will be used to complete your project number 5. As you remember, on the form that you have, there is no signature on the project number 5. So I need this piece of document to put in your portfolio, okay? So, and take pictures, all right? So if you're able to take, you can zoom in the image, even better. So for today, we're going to be using those metal discs that you guys have in your kits with the straight hand piece. You can use that to cut teeth in half. And if you don't have it, you can use a diamond burr. Please, please, please be absolutely careful not cutting yourself. All right. So last thing I want is a student going to an emergency room because of a report like this. Protect yourself. Make sure you have, your gloves on. Make sure you have your masks. Protect your eyes because these teeth might be, dehydrated and pieces of enamel or something might start flying all over the place. All right. So once you start cutting the teeth, you're going to see, beautiful things. Also, number one thing I also for you is make sure you have your round burrs and slow speed, those big round burrs, and the spoon excavator. That's a big spoon excavator is in your kit. You're going to use it today, and that's the only day you're going to use that instrument here in the lab, because next time you'll be in clinic next year. Just an example, look at this tooth here. You can see clearly some decay, and this is not arrested decay. Again, this student had no faculty member helping out with some information, but when you cut the tooth, in half, you can see the dentin underneath. You can see some demineralization underneath from the enamel, from the dentin, and this is the good stuff, right? So this is a tertiary dentin, by the way. All right. So when you see stained dentin, Dr. Resniak was making a comment here, and not necessarily means this is a disease in place. Okay, that dentin is just like it's a repair process coming from the top. So if you keep going here in page number 2, so look at this other tooth here, huge, open cavity, and the students even had the ability to use the spoon excavator and see that. Remember the Parmesan cheese? The idea of removing heavy debris. Yeah, you can see it here on the report. Great dark Parmesan cheese. I mean, I love that. I absolutely love it. That's great. Okay? It's an analogy with my son. Okay? So if you find, a tooth like this, make sure your colleagues can also explore and use the spoon excavator. The most important thing in a case like this is that you have the tactile sensation of removing the cake. It helps a lot. So many kids coming on the clinic is like, I don't know what carries. What is, sound dentin. I gave you a clue last time that I mentioned that sound dentin make a noise because it's getting hard to have one mineral. But this one here won't make any sound. It's just like you're scooping very nasty, the glue material. That's good. Don't need it. Okay? If you remember it, don't make sure you don't need it. But have that sensation, have that experience. It's very important. Please put labels, make sure you put some labels, and if you don't know what it is, ask the faculty members and put that in your report. The more, the better. Perhaps 3 or 4 pages will be more than enough. In this case here, these guys had like multiple teeth. You can see like even this tooth here, I think it was tooth number 30, and with a huge class 2 amalgam restoration. They mentioned that anatomy was not okay, by carving the tooth, but do you see something else here, like a huge staining in the surrounding wall, right? And last week was mentioned that nowadays we're using adhesive no matter what, because one of the ideas is to close the seal of the dentin tubes so they don't have the oxidation penetrating into the dentin tubes. Clearly this was not taken care of by the time this amalgam restoration was put in place. That's the result. After a few years, you have a stained tooth. And don't even try to use bleaching or anything. You definitely won't work. What else? So they cut the tooth in half, and you can see underneath that huge amount of preparation. Not only what the dentin or enamel is showing, but sometimes you can even see what kind of preparation it was made with that particular tooth. And some kids, they just like, look at this, I'm prepared to. The whole floor is not flat, or there is no axial wall, or the angles are super sharp. That's great. That's exactly what I want. Because now we are learning the concepts of preparation for a model, and when you're cutting a tooth like this, you can really see what's going on underneath. Okay? So make comments about the prep, make comments about the restoration, make comments about the lack of aligners and bases. Look at the size of this restoration. If there is no basis underneath, that would be a problem, right? Make comments about the enamel, dentin, the interface between enamel and dentin, soft dentin, if you find soft dentin. I had students even take like short videos, and I actually ended up showing those videos in lecture the following year. You can do that. Once you complete the report, the one thing I changed for this year, based on this report here, is take a photo of your group at the end of the lab, for two reasons. Number one, then I make sure that everyone is still staying here all the way to the end of the lab. Number two, this is a very good memory for me. I want to have a memory for you guys. If you don't mind. Okay? You can also put it together in a PDF and spread out for you later. But this is kind of cool. Who knows if like in 20 years you're gonna see these guys again? So like, hey, remember, guess what? They still have their report for me. This is the teacher. Let's do that. We know we're starting the lab like around 2 p.m. So if you finish earlier, you guys are super duper faster. That's good. The teachers do the report, change it into a PDF, send back to me by email. My email is rcr67, or you just type in my email, my name on Google, and it will show you my email address. Finish earlier, move forward to the next project. And again, you're still prepping teeth. You're not restoring yet. Next week, we have a matrix holders back here. And I want you to do a demo before you guys start playing. Okay? So if I'm not mistaken, you guys stopped on the project number 6 last week. Is that correct? Let's move to project number 7. Okay? We're going to start prepping that tooth. That's always tooth number 15. I'm sorry, is it 15? Can anyone check the course number? That's our